Well, hi all. So today we're going to go over, at least sort of, how to do a Spagyric formula, which is like the alchemical kind of thing. Because it's fun, and I wanted to make one anyway, so I might as well make a video about it. Yeah, I'm going to show you what you need, and that's, yeah. And then we're going to make it. It's going to be fun. Okay, so, yeah, okay, so let's just start. Okay, so first off, you're going to need a hot pad because this is a hot process, okay? This is an extraction chamber for your soxhlet, okay? This is the condensation tube. This goes at the top of the soxhlet. I'll show you how it's all put together. This is the cucurbit. I just washed everything, so it's a little watery. If there's a little water in there, that's okay. You need a stand and clamps to hold your whole apparatus together and over the heat source. I'm using the stove top. If you have a gas stove, it's probably better. I have an electric stove, so you work with what you've got. Today we're going to be working with oat. These are milky wild oats. They are great for nervous system health and memory, and they are kind of a relaxing thing. They are ruled by the sun, and so we're going to make one out of this because we're entering the hour of the sun according to the planetary hours, which we will talk about in class. You can always Google a planetary hour calculator and it will tell you which hour you're in for your region, and it changes every day. You can read about that in the wort cunning chapter of my book. In order to do this, we're going to need high proof alcohol. This is Emerald Springs 190 proof. I really like this one. It's cheap, it's floral, I like it. Keep away from heat and flames. No. You're also going to need a crucible. This is one that actually has ashes in it from another project. But I'll show you why you need a crucible. This is just, I know it's like super dirty looking because I've burned a lot of stuff in it. But you have to set the herbs on fire at one point, so woo. And then you're also going to need a grinder because we're going to grind our oats up. We're going to put them in there, so that goes there. We're going to grind it into a powder. Yeah, okay, all right, you with me? Great, cool. And then here we've got a sink of cold water. I'm going to put ice in here. That's a fish tank or fountain motor, whatever, because you have to have water moving through tubes and into the condensation chamber for the condensation chamber to work. So that's where we're at there. We're just going to get this set up and started, and I will show you how to do everything. Okay, so for dry herbs, you have to have something like this. They're called extraction thimbles. And they also sell extraction cones. I like the thimbles. They look like little penises, and I think that's very funny. But you have to get these thimbles for dry stuff, because if you have dry stuff in your cucurbit, then things get a little weird, and it doesn't distill quite as well. And you don't want dry, loose stuff in your extraction chamber, because that will lead to a clog in your chamber, and then nothing works. And also when you're working with dried stuff, you want to powder it up, which is why you had the grinder. This is not a really fine powder with the oats, and that's fine. As long as it's mostly powdered or flaked or whatever, that's fine. You just want enough surface area exposed that the extraction is going to be a success. And then this goes inside of the extraction chamber, so I'll show you that in just a second. So this is the bottle that eventually the tincture is going to live in. This is a 16-ounce Boston Round, amber colored. And I'm not the most scientific alchemist in the world, so, I just Put it in here and see how much I've got. This is actually, this might be a little bit too much for the cucurbit, but we're going to try it out. But this alcohol, this is full of the grain alcohol, is going to go into the cucurbit. And this is what we're going to heat up to extract our oats. So let's get that started. And here we are all set up. So the grain alcohol is in the cucurbit, that's about 16 ounces. It's over the heat source. This is the extraction chamber, and you've got the thimble inside with the dried herb powdered up. And when you're powdering the herb and putting it in there, you want to pack it down real tight. You don't want it to be loose. So as you're putting in little scoopfuls into your thimble, you have to press it down really hard and pack it pretty good. And then this is the condensation tube. You can see that there's water passing around all of these little lumps. Okay, these are the condensation units, and then these all need to be chilled so that the ethanol and water being evaporated from the cucurbit will not leave through this exhaust port. The exhaust port's actually really important because it allows for the pressure to maintain equalization within the soxhlet. If you block this up, then the pressure gets to be too much and all of your liquor will come out and you'll have explosions, and just trust me, don't block it. Personal experience, learn from my mistakes. But because this is chilled, the ethanol and water condensate before they get up here, so nothing actually escapes. It all will drip back down into the extraction chamber and then through your herb, and then it fills this up to about here and then gets squirted back down into the cucurbit, and then the cycle starts again. That's the basics of a Spagyric formula with a soxhlet. Okay, so the soxhlet is this apparatus here. I got this one for about $100 on Evil Devil Amazon. But yeah, $100. It's not too bad for a chemistry set, actually. And then this is all clamped down on the stand. I'm weighting it down with this trivet and spice combo because it got a little too heavy when the water got in the condensation tube. It's a little dangerous. And then over here we've got the sink full of cold water and ice, and then that's where the condensation tube is draining back into the water. So you just kind of cycle water around the condensation unit so that they maintain a chill. Okay. So neat. We're gonna start it up. So you can start pretty low. With this, you don't have to be. With distillations, you do. You have to really watch the temperature because like ethanol evaporates at 78 degrees Celsius. And so if you go above that, then you're going to be evaporating water with the ethanol, and that's not what you want in a distillation. This is a soxhlet extraction, and so it doesn't matter if there's water involved. In fact, you want the water as part of this extraction method. And so I just put the heat on like a medium high. For our stove, that's a 2. And then you just let it get hot. And once things start going, we'll come back to it and I'll show you what happens. It begins! You see all the swirlies in there? That's the ethanol starting to evaporate from within a watery matrix. And so that goes up here in a clear vapor that enters the condensation tube and begins to condensate in there. You can see some little condensations in there. It's already beginning. Oh, look at that.
Are you sure the bullying's the only thing that's bothering you?
Soon.
Soon.
Okay, so it already blooped back down. Remember, that was clear. And now it's this beautiful green color. And this is getting filled with the liquor. as it drips down from the condensation chamber, and you can kind of see it evaporating in there as that white smoke. Alchemists thought that that was the spirit of the liquor, because it's like, especially when they were distilling wine to get aquavite, this would have been kind of like a red wine, so a deep reddish purple color. And then you start the distillation process, and all of a sudden in these condensation units you've got something that looks like white smoke, and they thought that was the Holy Ghost, or the essence, the spirit of that liquor. And here we're just distilling it down through these oats. You can see they're looking kind of mushy. Oops. How do you focus this fucker? There we go. And you see how heavy the green is at the bottom there? And then it gets kind of like a lighterish greenish yellow up at the top. Once that bottom is a little bit more like the clear top, that's when it's basically done. When it stops staining at the bottom. Yeah, and then it rounds that corner and it spoops back down into the cucurbit from the extraction chamber. And then the process starts again. Isn't that cool? I love Spagyrics, they're really neat. So I totally should have shown you taking apart the soxhlet. I didn't. So maybe we'll put like I have to make another Spagyric after this. So maybe we'll just make like a little addendum to this at the end so you can see how to take a Spagyric soxhlet thingy apart. But anyway, this was what was in the cucurbit at the end, and you just kind of take all the liquid and put it in your storage vessel. This is now the sulfur and mercury of milky wild oats, Avena sativa. And so this is the spirit and the soul of the plant. And the body, the physical body, is now here. So this was the milky oats in the extraction thimble, and then you just take that, you cut it. I use scissors just to cut it down the side, and then you scrape everything into your crucible. This is the crucible I inherited from my grandfather, so it's extra special. Then we do a little blowtorchy action, and then wha-bam! Woo! You set that fucker on fire! And then we're just gonna let it burn. You stir it a little bit as it's burning so that it burns pretty evenly and all the alcohol is burned out of the initial mark. So whatever herb you put in, whatever your herb is, that's your mark. And then the grain alcohol is your menstruum. And then once your menstruum is infused with the extraction of your mark, then you calcinate or burn your mark until it is a powdery white ash. And then we wash the ashes, and I'll show you how to do that. And then you add that into your Spagyric at the appropriate time. And really that should actually be in the jar before you pour the mercury and the sulfur in. If we're doing it all correctly, or like according to the alchemists, whatever, but you know, we're modern bitches, we don't need to do that. So anyway, we will catch up after this is calcinated, and I'll show you the whole fucking process. So here we are a little further in. This is probably like 10 minutes in to the initial calcination, so we haven't lit it on fire again or anything. Just burning away. It'll burn down to a blackish ash, and then we'll go from there. This is from Jasmine Spagyric. And you just use your little blowtorch to blowtorch it up until it's white ash. Pretty crazy. Wow. So ashy. Okay, so you let it calcinate until the fire goes out, and then you take a pestle and you just break up as much of the ash as you can into smaller ashes. You can see there's still some oats left in here too. But eventually you're going to end up with a little pile of ashes that is much, much smaller than what you started off with. And then you do it again. So this is day 2 of the calcination process. We're finally down to this little patch of black at the bottom. Unfortunately, Avena sativa is really fibrous, so it takes for fucking ever to burn it down. But it's not as bad as bone. So there's that. Ugh. Such a chore. Okay, so I forgot to record washing the ashes of the Avena sativa, the Milky Wild Oat. So I did another Spagyric of Blue Lotus, which Stephanie has told us about before. And this is the result of the calcining of the Blue Lotus. And I did a double wash, so I filled 2 thimbles full of the Blue Lotus. And so I had 2 of these crucibles full, and that is what I'm left with. That is the end result of calcination. Now we have to wash them. So hang tight. Okay, so to wash your ashes, you need a little crock potty thing, a pot of some kind, and a tightly knit cloth. Okay, this is just a tea towel. Then you're going to take your calcined ashes, which you are not going to just hurl all over the counter. Okay, and you put them in there. Okay, so that is 2 crucibles worth of ashes. What? Okay, then you're going to take some filtered water and you just pour it over the ashes. Okay. And then that filtered water is going to bleed out into your bowl and take with it all of the very fine ashes, and that's what we're after. So you end up with sort of dirty water. Nice. Then you're just going to put whatever burner you're using on super low, and you're just going to evaporate this water, and you'll end up with a very fine layer of ash called the refined salt. So it's been literally 84 years, but I finally got the ashes all the way burned, and I showed you I washed them. So you just let that water evaporate, and what you're left with is kind of a thin film of ash. And you just scrape that off the bottom, and you get a tiny little pile. I forgot to film myself doing that. Oh well. But now I have this. All the Blue Lotus. So then you put the salts in a little bowl, you pour your tincture over it, and that's adding the spirit and the soul back into the body of whatever you've made. And then you decant it all into a bottle. And now this is a full Spagyric of Blue Lotus. Useful for dreaming and stuff.